What up, y'all? It's your boy MJ Jackson once again. I hope I'm coming through pretty good for you guys. I'm trying something else. So, look, I'm dropping in on you guys real quick just to do a short little video. There's been a lot of positive activity going on with the releasing of the debate between Brother Jabari, and Dr. Vince Bantu. A lot of information has went forth, and there's been somewhat, I guess, what you could call shockwaves being sent through the quote-unquote conscious community, quote-unquote new conscious community, where we see the conscious community basically being redefined, right before our very eyes. And so as a result, what you have seen is guys move away, and I'm going to be showing some books today, but you've seen guys tend to move away from certain arguments found within books like these, that try to demonstrate that Jesus was a copycat of Egyptian deities. So you can find some of those arguments in a book like this, pretty decent sized book. You've seen the condemnation of books like these being declared right off the back pseudo, and this is Walter Williams' book. And of course, you got John G. Jackson's books. What I will say about John G. Jackson, he tries, but I mean, it's really like you reading a repackaging of Kersey Graves. So, we've been seeing, the make sure I get it, the distancing from materials like this. Now, of course, me, I'm in school, so I still interact with it because I know people still read it. But what you've seen is the casting off of what is perceived to be pseudo, and what you have effectively seen is guys within the conscious community run to Bart Ehrman, and so you see, you see them posting, 2-hour debates and things like that on their YouTube channels. And to be perfectly honest with you, the beautiful thing about it is, since we are effectively running to white scholars, that's quite all right with us because, it's no big deal. This is mainstream scholarship that you're getting into now. I guess what I'm saying is what made addressing certain issues difficult within the argumentation that some of the people in the conscious community were using is the simple fact that a lot of the books and information that they were using was not properly cited or sourced. So we had to track down information from Kersey Graves and Gerald Massey, and it wasn't so much that the information was hard to deal with, it's just that it was hard to find and hard to trace down and things like that because it was so poorly cited. But when you're getting into mainstream scholarship like Bart Ehrman, so we got Misquoting Jesus by Bart Ehrman. And the thing about it, and I'm going to tell you just like this, if you're going to get away from pseudo scholarship and get into real scholarship, mainstream scholarship, real scholarship is being able to look at both sides of the argument and represent both sides fairly and deal with the information from that. So yeah, I do have, Christians, we do have books by Bart Ehrman. Okay, that's Misquoting Jesus. How about another one? Jesus Interrupted. And Bart Ehrman, he just puts it out for you guys. And I appreciate Bart because we can learn some things from Bart. So we have Jesus Interrupted, revealing the hidden contradictions in the Bible and why we don't know about them. Well, church I go to, we teach about you know, alleged, and we'll say alleged contradictions, because a lot of times you're reading the English Bible and you're trying to deal with the English Bible, not understanding that first and foremost the Bible wasn't written in English. Second of all, you can't take a postmodern standard and anachronistically judge ancient literature by it. That is what we would call intellectual and cultural imperialism. And you just can't do that. You have to judge the literature based on its own standards for its times and things like that. So, and we find that Bart Ehrman does that quite a bit. So we got Forged by Bart Ehrman. Okay? Writing in the name of God, why the Bible's authors are not who we think they are. Then we got Forged. Okay? And nobody's scared of Bart Ehrman. You're getting ready to see that in just 1 minute. Okay? And after I'm done showing you all the books against Orthodox Christianity, we're going to get into some responses. And here's another. We got Lost Christianities by Bart Ehrman. And like I said, hey, we'll read Bart's stuff because we want to represent his arguments very well. We don't have to be afraid of anything that Bart Ehrman has to say, and we'll deal with it accordingly. Okay? So we got Lost Christianities, The Battle for Scriptures, and The Faith We Never Knew. So I'm pretty sure you're going to get into some things with Marcion. You're going to get into some things with the Ebionites. You're going to get into some apocryphal stuff, some pseudepigraphal stuff, some things like that. Okay? So I'm going to take this and I'm going to set it on over here because I'm done with it for right now. Okay? And I got some more stuff. I got one more book by Bart Ehrman. And I got a few more other books that I'm ordering by Bart Ehrman. But here's another book. Did Jesus Exist? Okay? Now, this is a book that Bart Ehrman does not necessarily write for atheists or whatever. But this is a book that he's pretty much dealing with the mythicist theory and taking it apart himself. A lot of people love Bart for certain reasons, then they hate him for other reasons. So, but Bart does believe that Jesus existed. He does believe that according to the New Testament, there are certain things that we can say about Jesus. Okay? So, this is a book that Bart Ehrman wrote dealing specifically with Jesus mythicists. Okay? So we'll set that right over there. Okay. So I got two more books. Let me just take a little sip of this coffee real quick. Just 1 second. Alright. Got a few more books right here. And whenever you're talking about attacks on the New Testament, man, you cannot forget about your mythicist sensationalist is what I'm going to call them, because these guys are not mainstream scholarship. They are not in the consensus of scholarship. Hello, a lot of people like to rely on the consensus, but the thing about it, you can deviate from the consensus. You just need to be able to substantiate your reasons for why you're doing so. So, what we have here is Deconstructing Jesus by Mr. Robert or Bob Price. Okay? And what it says right here is, in mainstream New Testament scholarship finally catching up with the skepticism of free thinkers and rationalists? I don't think that they're free thinkers or rationalists. This is me talking. I think they are irrationalists. Yes, irrationalist. So this is a book by Robert Price, and he says, in Deconstructing Jesus, Robert M. Price summarizes many recent scholarly trends, providing sympathetic criticism, and then takes up where scholars like Burton L. Mack, John Dominic Crossan leave off, putting many puzzles and scholarly debates in a surprising new light. This volume was filled with new textual insights that paved the way for a new reconstruction of Christian origins. Deconstructing Jesus is an excellent introduction to today's debates about the historical Jesus and early Christianity. Price illustrates a new paradigm linking the approaches of F.C. Baur, Walter Baur, Helmut Koester, James M. Robinson, and the eclectic work of Christ-myth theorists of the 19th and early 20th century. Those are the guys in Germany. Those are that's the German school of religion in Germany. So, yeah, this is not African. Africans don't think that. Yeah, this is thoroughly European irrationalism. And providing a valuable bridge between the two distinct camps of biblical analysis. Price's incorporation of the neglected gospel parallels from Islam, the Baha'i faith, Buddhism, resulted in a refreshing cross-fertilization of principles. Okay, and this was by Prometheus Books. All right. So we got one more, and it's a big one. It's a big one. And this is by Richard Carrier on the historicity of Jesus and why we might have reason for doubt. Okay? And the funny thing about this book is Richard Carrier, he does his usual spiel, but he also uses Bayes' theorem, okay, to try and disprove the existence of Jesus. Of course, he talks about the New Testament documents and things like that. But the funny thing about it, and Bart Ehrman pointed this out, he said you got a Jesus mythicist who uses Bayes' theorem, and you got a guy over in England at Oxford who also uses Bayes' theorem to prove that Jesus existed. So Bayes, Ehrman says that Bayes' theorem is not the way to go, and the guy at Oxford and all my Christian brothers, especially Adam Coleman, wouldn't know who we're talking. We're talking about Dr. Richard Swinburne, who uses Bayes' theorem. Pretty much, he uses Bayes' theorem in everything. But we're talking about Richard Swinburne, who does the exact reverse, opposite of what Richard Carrier is doing in this book. It's a pretty thick book. You also got it on. You got the audio version of it, and it's worth reading, especially if you're going to school and stuff like that. You want to interact with stuff like this. There's no reason to be afraid of anything that these guys are putting out. And so what you see with Robert Price and Richard Carrier, and of course we got David Fitzgerald and things like that, but Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy, I would encourage everybody to check out that debate. Michael Jones took him apart, and it was very, David Fitzgerald was like, this is why I don't like having these conversations. What you don't like to do is debate Christians who have thoroughly looked into your work and checked your sources and are able to pretty much take apart your arguments. Okay, so let's keep going. So I've showed you all of the stuff against the historical reliability of the Gospels. Now I got this stack right here. This is not all of my stuff. It's not even my stuff dealing with the historicity of the resurrection, because we got books back there on the bottom shelf dealing with the resurrection. But these are the books specifically dealing with the Gospels and whether we can say or not Jesus existed. It's dealing with the Gospels and the New Testament. So, without further ado, the very first book that you should get, just to wet your beak a little bit and get your feet wet, It's by F. Bruce. The New Testament documents, are they reliable? Okay. And this is where you start. It's not a horrible read. It's an easy read, and you can get right through it. And this is a good place to start. And when we do read books, what we like to do is look at the footnotes, because the footnotes also point you toward more sources and things like that. So, yeah, we got the New Testament documents by F. Bruce, are they reliable? Now, you saw me pick up Bart Ehrman's books. You saw me pick up several of his books. And before I get to that, I'm gonna get back to Bart Ehrman in a minute. But this is a good book. Okay. It's what we call a 5 views book. Okay. And the beautiful thing about 5 views book, I have several 5 views book. I have 5 views book with Christians from different different theological traditions interacting with each other. But the beautiful thing about a 5 views book, if you don't mind reading this, is these are written debates. So you got Robert Price, you got John Dominic Crossan, some of these guys are in the Jesus Seminar. You got Luke Timothy Johnson, okay? You got James D.G. Dunn, you got Daryl Bach. And they're all interacting with each other's information. And so this is worth reading if you want to see how people can be directly answered and see how information is interacted with. So there it is, the Historical Jesus 5 Views book. There you go. Got that. Let me set that right here. Take a nap in a minute. Okay. But we looked at several of Bart Ehrman's books. They're all right there. Okay. One book that you gotta have, you can pick this up at, I don't know where everybody lives, but you can get it on Amazon or you can go to Mardell's. Okay. You need this book by Dr. Craig Blomberg, The Historical Reliability of the New Testament. And it's pretty thick, but it's written material and it's almost encyclopedic as well. Okay? And it says, countering the challenges to evangelical Christian beliefs. Let me just read a little bit from the back. Questions about the reliability of the New Testament are commonly raised today by both biblical scholars and the popular media, drawing on decades of research. Craig L. Blomberg addresses major objections to the historicity of the New Testament in one comprehensive volume. Topics addressed include the formation of the Gospels, the transmission of the text, the formation of the canon. Okay, you got a lot of people bringing up canon issues. People like Garfield, he keep talking about the canon, talking about Ebionites. He's talking about Marcion. We'll get this book and read up on it. Also, you can get a book from the No series that says Know the Heretics. So you can find out more about Marcion than that. Alleged contradictions, a relationship between Jesus and Paul, supposed Pauline forgeries, other gospels, miracles, and many more. Historical corroboration of details from all parts of the New Testament are also presented throughout. The historical reliability of the New Testament marshals the latest scholarship in responding to New Testament objections while remaining accessible to non-specialists. So, get this book. It's a pretty good book. If you don't get anything else, get this. Another book I think that you can get is, and I think this is a direct answer to Bart Ehrman's Lost Christianities, and this is called The Missing Gospels: Unearthing the Truth Behind Alternative Christianities, and it's by Dr. Daryl Bach of DTS, Dallas Theological Seminary. Okay, and man, please get it. This says it's a necessary book that corrects many still fashionable but even questionable hypotheses about the origins of the gospel, the non-commodity texts, and the development of Christian theology in the first two century. Larry Hurtado says those who don't want their prejudice disturbed. It's just what I said about scholarship earlier, being able to look at both sides. But if you don't want your, according to Larry Hurtado, if you don't want your prejudice disturbed, you will want to avoid this book. Those with an open mind and a readiness to learn from scholarship read with profit. Okay? So this is a must-have. That's The Missing Gospels by Dr. Darrell Bock. I'm going to set that right there. Get this out of the way. I hope these books don't fall over while I'm talking to you guys. Let me take another sip of this coffee. How long we been going? 21 minutes. Okay. Another book you need to have is this book. And it's also a website that is pretty helpful called tectonics.com or .org. Something like that. But it's called Trusting the New Testaments. It's a pretty good book. He addresses so many issues. In this volume, prominent internet apologist James Patrick Holden would take a closer look at 4 aspects of the transmission of the New Testament to answer important questions. Okay? Was the New Testament material corrupted when it was passed on orally or by word of mouth before it was written down? Was the New Testament material corrupted as it was copied? Was the New Testament material really written by the people whose names are on the books? Was the New Testament canon judiciously selected? Great book. You need to get it. It's affordable. Christmas is coming up. Make your list. I'm sending some books to some of my homies this year. So, hey, ask for a book. I'm going to set this right here. Okay. I'm going to hold off on this one because right now we're just establishing the historical reliability of the Gospels in the New Testament. But I'll probably get back to that. If I don't, it's okay. We got another day. Another book that you have got to have is Craig Blomberg's book. Okay, now the other book addresses a lot of the same stuff, but this is specifically for the Gospels. Specifically for the Gospels. And so I think that you would greatly benefit from this. And let me just read a little bit from the back, okay? Many people continue to believe that only a small percentage of New Testament accounts of the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth reflect what he really said and did. The reasons for skepticism may vary over the years, but some arguments have proved remarkably persistent. For example, the Gospels were not written down by people in position to know what Jesus was like. Primitive cultures believed in miracles that we know are impossible. Theological interest precludes historical accuracy. Non-canonical texts disprove the story in the Gospel and so on. Okay? Such claims are in fact weakly supported or have actually been disproved. However, various issues contribute to the complexity of the questions of the Gospel's trustworthiness, and disagreements remain. Furthermore, confusion has been compounded by fiction promoted in popular culture or by eccentric, unrepresentative scholarship. Those are your mythicists. Okay, but check this out. Since his first appearance in 1987, Craig Blomberg's response to skepticism in the historical reliability of the gospel has widely been appreciated. This is a fully revised work and updated work, and this new edition takes account of the vast amount of relevant scholarship that has appeared over the last few decades, ranging over a wide field of differences between parallel accounts of the same events The striking contrast between John and the Synoptic Gospel and the theological interests of the evangelists, the miracles of Jesus, the testimony of extra-biblical sources, and the critical assessment of historical methods, Professor Blomberg presents a thorough, informed engagement with the main issues in the ongoing debate, deliberately refusing to appeal to the inspiration of the Bible or to the church tradition. He convincingly demonstrates the overall historical reliability of the Gospels. You need to have this book, The Historical Reliability of the Gospels. This is the second edition by Craig L. Blomberg. So, he also wrote The Historical Reliability of John's Gospel. So if you just want to deal with John's Gospel, this is also a commentary, but you can take a look at this one. Okay. So, before I get to these last two, I just want to hit these. And I guess I'll keep them all together. But these are my big four. Okay. This is the big four. Okay. And if I would have to say, if you can't read all of them, at least start with this one, Reinventing Jesus. How contemporary skeptics miss the real Jesus and mislead popular culture. And this book hits it from several different angles, from orality studies to textual criticism, also to parallelomania. This book, it's not as big as the other ones, but it most definitely gets the job done. I have recommended this book to several people. It's by Ed Komosky. I know he teaches at DTS. It's also by Mr. James Sawyer and by the well-known Dr. Daniel B. Wallace, well-known textual critic. And yes, Dr. Wallace writes about other things than textual criticism too. So this is a good book, one of my favorite books. If you don't get anything else, get this one. So this is we're down to the big four, okay? And I'm trying to wrap it up. Okay? The second of the big four that you need to get is The Jesus Legend by Paul Rhodes Eddy and Gregory Boyd. And this is a wonderful book. And, this is a case for the historical reliability of the Synoptic Jesus tradition. So once again, it deals with the oral histories within the New Testament text, the sources underlying the New Testament text, the sources underlying the synoptics. It deals with the mythicist arguments. It deals with the historical method. It deals with the philosophy behind the historical method as well. So, I'm just going to read a little bit what Richard Bauckham had to say about this book. This is one of the most important books on methodological issues in the study of Jesus and the gospel to have appeared for a long time. It deserves to be widely read. And that's Richard Bauckham, okay? Let's read also two more. I am gratified that my friends and colleagues Paul Eddy and Gregory Boyd have taken my work as seriously as they have in this comprehensively researched book. I urge any reader of my books to read this one alongside them. And guess who wrote that? Dr. Robert M. Price. Okay. Last one. Eddy and Boyd have provided a thoroughly compelling cumulative argument, one of the very best available for the reliability of the Synoptic Jesus tradition. Their book constitute a superb treatment of the various issues involving both fresh research and a brilliant synthesis of material from a variety of relevant disciplines. That's Craig S. Keener. So with this book, yes, you're dealing with the historical method. You're also dealing with a contrast to the closed historical method with the philosophical underpinnings undergirding that method to what's called the open historical method. These guys really go into the intellectual imperialism purported by those in the West that set themselves up as judge over all of the other things that happen intellectually in the world. So yes, it's a good book. They're dealing with New Testament texts, but they're also dealing with orality studies as well. Okay? And for Christmas, the Jesus Legend, Paul Rhodes, Eddie, and Gregory Boyd. Okay? Get that. Alright. I don't know which one of these two to start with first, and they need to send me some money for advertising all these books. because somebody's going to buy a book one of these days. But you really can't go wrong with either one of these. What I will say is something that my man Vocab pointed out when he had his debate with David Fitzgerald. Vocab pointed out to David Fitzgerald that none of the mythicists interact with the information in the Jesus Legend or any of Richard Bauckham's information. Okay? And right now what we're doing is we're getting to the best of the best. Far as the scholarship defending the historical reliability of the New Testament. Okay? And so within this book, Richard Bauckham gives a defense of the gospel as eyewitness testimony. Okay? It's not just a matter of copying manuscripts, but we're dealing with the essential issues. So let's just read a little bit about it. Okay, the question of whether the Gospels are based on eyewitness accounts has long been controversial. Richard Bauckham, in Characteristic Tour de Force, draws on his unparalleled knowledge of the world of the first Christians to argue not only that the Gospel do indeed contain eyewitness testimony, but that their first readers would have certainly have recognized them as such. This book is a remarkable piece of detective work, resulting in a fresh and vivid approach to dozens or perhaps hundreds of well-known problems in the passage. Another blockbuster from the productive pen of Richard Bauckham. That's N.T. Wright and James D.G. Dunn. Okay? So you want to interact with the best of the best? Look at that. You're going to be doing some reading. And if you're reading any books that's not addressing the arguments within this book, you're not dealing with anything that we have said, that we have defended, or that we believe. You're just not. You're just repeating yourself in an echo chamber, so to speak. So, as I talk about this book, please do not let this picture confuse you. Okay, and so some stuff is just on the book to sell it. Okay, but this book is written by a good scholar by the name of Craig Keener. If you don't learn nothing else today, if you're watching this video and you're not a Christian, you're going to learn who these scholars are. Richard Bauckham, Craig Blomberg, Paul Rhodes, Gregory Boyd, Daniel B. Wallace, Ronald Nash, okay, James P. Holden, F.F. Bruce. You're going to learn who these people are. You're going to learn today, so to speak. But this is from the prestigious and eminent scholar. That's some Dr. William Lane Craig, the eminent scholar has said. No, the eminent scholar Dr. Craig S. Keener. The dude just writes for days. He wrote the massive volume series on Acts, the massive volume series on miracles. Let me see here. I know I got a Romans commentary in there somewhere. I got a 2-volume commentary series on John. The brother just writes for days. And check this out. He's also married to a Congolese woman, if I'm not mistaken. So he's married to an African woman as well. Okay? But this book, he talks about the historical Jesus of the Gospels. Once again, it's another massive book. So you can get on YouTube, and this is going to be no more than 35, 40 minutes long. So what I'm saying is, you can get on YouTube for days. You can play debates. You can try to condition your audience for days. But the bottom line is you got homework to do. And I'm not talking to Christians. I'm talking to those who call themselves exposing the Christian deception. Look, ain't nobody deceiving anybody. We put all our information out there. You know, we got receipts. We put most of the information out there for you to go research. So the truth has nothing to be afraid of. There is no deception. There is only homework for you to do. Get your weight up. Go do your homework. But before you go do that, let me just talk about this for those who want to know. This book is a wonderful book on the historical Jesus. The section of this book that I am on, let me see here. I got my bookmark. I'm on page 140. And guess what? I'm on chapter 10, and I'm dealing with the Gospels as oral sources. Oh yeah, I'm dealing with the Gospels as oral sources. So yesterday I was watching a panel discussion, and within the panel discussion you had Dr. Mike Lacona, you had Dr. Bart Ehrman, you had Dr. Craig Keener, and you had another prestigious scholar whose name that I do not know, and I mean him no disrespect. But he was there too, and he said some wonderful stuff. But if you know Bart Ehrman, he will throw his weight around with certain people. Okay? He attempted to throw his weight around a little bit with Peter J. Williams, or Peter Williams, I don't know if I got his initial right, on the Unbelievable Radio Show. Okay? Sometimes he'll try to throw his weight around with Dr. Mike Lacona, and Dr. Mike Lacona is a nice guy. But, of course, Dr. Michael Lacona was also firing back at him as well, calling him out on certain things. Because what Dr. Ehrman likes to do is impose the standards of modernity on writings of antiquity, and that is just it's just irresponsible, so to speak. And it's irresponsible and it's misleading. But within this panel discussion, Dr. Ehrman has admitted that he's just, and even with Peter Williams, he admits that within maybe the last 5 years, he's just begun to study the oral nature of the culture from which the New Testament emerged, of the Near East and the Mediterranean. He's just beginning to do the orality studies. Okay, and it was an oral culture. This is not some game of telephone. Okay, this is different from. They are different from us. Cultures in Africa, cultures in the Near East are different from Americans, and I think that we have become even more crippled with the computers and the things like that, because our attention is so split up all over the place that we got 1,000 things going. Whereas you had people in that culture remembering the Iliad and things like that. They remembered their rabbi's teachings. They remembered the core message of it. So Dr. Keener was able to kind of hold Bart Ehrman's feet to the fire a little bit, because on the sources that Dr. Ehrman pointed out, well, Dr. Kearney was like, well, yeah, I have read them and I've responded to them. Have you read what I wrote? And Dr. Ehrman was like, well, when you get a chance, do read it. But I've read what you read and I've responded to it, and I haven't received an adequate response back. So what I'm pointing out to you is whatever they bring up, it might take us a little bit, it might take us more words and a little bit more time to respond to it, simply because of the fact that most people, when they object to the Gospels, they're basing that objection. The objection is flawed because it assumes some type of intellectual and cultural superiority, and it bases its standards off of the culture, off of what's perceived to be intellectual according to 21st century standards, and it tries to critique ancient literature and the culture by those standards. I hope I'm making sense. But anywho, if you don't get any other books, okay, you need to get this one. The Historical Jesus of the Gospels by Craig Keener. Okay? Let me just read a little bit on the back here. Written with critical acumen, Craig Keener presents a comprehensive account of the study of the historical Jesus. It will be a boon for all reader, inquisitive laypeople, pastors, students of the Gospels, and biblical colleagues. You need to get that one. If you don't get nothing else, you need to get Jesus and the Eyewitnesses by Richard Balcom. If you can't get that, you need to get the Jesus Legend by Gregory Boyd and Paul Eddy. And you know what? If you haven't got your weight up, you need to get Reinventing Jesus, Daniel B. Wallace, Dr. Wallace, James Sawyer, and J. Ed Kamoski. All three of these guys were professors of my pastor, so I have to let him tell me how to pronounce that name. Anyway, it's been real. Y'all have a good day, and God bless you guys. Take care. Peace.